How's it going, guys? My name is Jay. I produce and release music under the artist name Basic, and today I'm going to show you how Levity makes their basses. So a couple days ago, I actually came across a comment on Instagram where Levity revealed how they make their phase basses specifically, and I thought it was really interesting because it kind of took a concept that I've seen a lot of artists talk about a lot recently and expand upon it a little bit. I'll put that comment right here so you guys can take a look at what I'm talking about, but we're going to break it down and build it up together, and I'm going to include a free rack for you guys at the end of the video. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about what phasing actually is and how it creates the sound that it does. It's a super common sound across a ton of EDM genres, and I think it's really important to know what exactly you're doing when you apply it. And the simplest way I can describe it, phasing is basically when you're asking the speaker cone to move in two directions at once, leaving it in the middle position and creating phase cancellation where nothing plays at all. When you slightly offset frequencies from one another, you're causing different amounts of phase cancellation and causing the frequency spectrum to almost roll in a wave-like motion, and the speed depends on how much you're spreading the frequencies apart. So you guys can see what I'm talking about. I have Span open right now, and I'm just gonna solo these basses with and without the phase cancellation. So this is without the phasing. Still pretty cool sound, but not much motion going on. And then when you add the phasing, the spectrum is gonna look like this. So you can kind of see how it's wobbling in a wave-like motion. That's the effect that we're going for with this. So this is the rack that we're working with today, and this is based on exactly what Levity said in that comment that I just put on the screen for their Instagram. And I'll actually break it down and show you guys how to make it from scratch. So I'm going to open up Serum real quick just so you guys can see what we have going on here. You can do this with all kinds of basses. It works best on sustains and wubs in my opinion, but you can really experiment and throw it on anything. Anything with lots of harmonics, essentially saw type or square type movement, is what we're going to want for something like this, because we want to have a lot of frequencies in the spectrum to manipulate. Now, getting into the actual creation of the bass itself, we're going to grab Ableton's shifter, and we're going to change it to frequency mode. Throw the dry wet to 20%. Just click the top of it and hit Command G. Then going to click this little circle right here to create some macros. I'm not going to need all of these, so we're just going to bring this down to 2. And you're going to want to hit map, and then map this fine knob to macro 1. We'll call this freak 1. Give it a nice color if you want. And then we're going to change this range up here to -20 and regular 20 or plus 20 hertz. Next, we are going to duplicate this. We're going to want to remove this mapping right here, unmap from frequency 1. And we're going to change this dry wet to 50% and then map this fine knob to number 2. And then we're going to do the same thing, -20 and plus 20. Awesome. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is enable wide on this first frequency shifter. Now that we have this all set up, you can start to play around with these frequencies and put them in different places and start to get different results. So if we put this one up to about 3 and then this one down maybe a little bit further, we're going to get a sound like this. And you can move these around. So as you can see, most of the cool movement comes from when these parameters are actually moving, so automating these parameters. That being said, we're going to go back to our original rack and check out what we have done over here. I'm going to minimize this. And so here we have this knob right here, which turns the LFOs on or off. And essentially what that's doing is we have these LFOs, which have all these different parameters you can adjust in different settings, which are manipulating these shifters right here. So I'm actually going to show you over here on this bass, because this is the one we're using it for. So you can see these LFOs are moving in accordance with these values and changing subtly the parts on these shifters. So I'll usually select blank, and then we're going to have these playing. So you can hear all that movement happening without the LFO. It just sounds like this. Pretty boring. And then you add the LFO and you get all these variations. Very nice. You can check different ones. Can also combine these with different ones over here. It's pretty cool. There you go. Pretty simple, pretty simple. And there's one more thing that I like to do to these basses just to add a little bit more texture. So you can see in the post-processing chain here, before our EQ, saturator, and OTT, we have spectral time. So what that does is it gives it almost like a wet texture. It delays the time that it takes the high frequencies or the low frequencies in comparison to the other, depending on what you set this tilt to right here. So what I mean by that is this. If you listen to it without the spectral time, it's going to sound like this. And with the spectral time, gives it just a little bit more of a lasery kind of wet texture as it's delaying those frequencies. You can play with the tilt and get some pretty crazy sounds like this. So messing with that is always fun as well, especially with these phasing kind of basses, because you're constantly changing what's going into the spectral time, and that's also constantly changing as it's adjusting for the tilt. After that, we just have some super simple post-processing, low cutting before the saturator so that we don't get any crazy clipping. Just a simple OTT with some settings that I got from Dripmit's channel. Great channel, by the way. Check him out. He's got some awesome videos. And then just an EQ cutting out some of this harshness here and cutting out the lows because we already have our dedicated sub down here. So back to these main basses, I want to talk about some automations that are happening here. If we click the automation tab, you can see that we are manually automating these basses right here so that we can have different textures and different tonalities throughout the song, making it a little bit more interesting. The LFO is great for fills and those kind of things, but it can get pretty repetitive, so manually editing these frequencies is definitely where it's at. So you can hear this one more time. So that's that. I also want you guys to check out this reverb throw right here, just adding a little bit of tension. So here's it with it. Without. It's just a little bit more flat. It's super subtle, something that you might not notice consciously, but it does add to the motion of the song overall. Of course, we also have a couple sweeps to add to that motion as well. These down sweeps on the 1 and on the 3 approaching that last little phrase, and approaching the 1 on the second phrase, we have these little up sweeps right here. Listen to those real quick. Super simple, glittery, quick to the point, and in context. And without them. Just kind of loses a little bit of that motion. These drums are pretty simple as well. Super basic kick pattern, basic snare pattern, simple little loop, and then a little backspin sample right before the 1 to give some tension. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have fun with these phase basses and make some cool stuff. And shout out to Levity for revealing some of these industry secrets. So I'm going to be dropping a free copy of this rack in my Patreon. You're just going to have to join as a free member, no cost associated. But please do have fun with this concept. Expand upon it as you like. There's so much going on in the world of phasing. And until next time, thank you so much for watching.